Welcome back, seekers of the truth behind the veil. I'm Vera. Tonight, we're climbing into the Dublin mountains to a place where the dirt is hungry and the stones have long memories. We're talking about the Mount Pellier Hill and the blocky, windowless ruin that sits on its summit like a stone skull. The Hellfire Club. To understand why this place is so profoundly wrong, we have to go back further than the humans usually like to look. 5,000 years ago, during the Neolithic period, this summit was a sacred house for the dead. It wasn't just a hill, it was a ritual epicenter. Neolithic farmers built a massive passage tomb complex here, a circular cairn 34 yards wide, encased in heavy gray whack boulders. It was a site of power, aligned with the stars and visible to its sister tomb at Fairy Castle on Two Rock Mountain. For 3,000 years, the dead slept here in peace until the Enlightenment arrived, and with it, a man who thought he was bigger than the gods. Meet William Speaker Connolly. He was the son of a publican who rose to become the Speaker of the Irish House of Commons, the wealthiest man in Ireland. In 1725, he purchased the Rathfarnham estate, which included this hill. Connolly wanted a summer hunting lodge, a place to look out over his vast domain and see his primary estate, the Selbridge. But Connolly was a practical man, which is a very human way of saying he was a thief. To save money on quarrying, he ordered his workmen to dismantle the ancient tomb. They ripped the stones of the graves and used them as bricks for his walls. Most infamously, he took a massive Neolithic standing stone, a rock that had been seen thousands of winter of rituals, and used it as the lintel for his fireplace. I've seen a lot of human arrogance in my time, but there is a special kind of stupidity in building a house for the living out of the bones of a house for the dead. Connolly thought he was being efficient, but in my world, you don't just move a burial site. You invite the occupants to your dinner table. The locals called it Connolly's Folly, but they were too kind. It wasn't a folly, it was an invitation to a haunting. The hill didn't wait long to strike back. Shortly after the lodge originally named Mount Pellier was completed, a storm of biblical proportions tore across the Dublin mountains. The original slated roof was ripped off the building and scattered across the slopes. To the scientists, it was just weather. To the local peasantry, it was the devil himself, enraged that his servant's resting place had been turned into a rich man's parlor. Connolly, undeterred by superstition, doubled down. He rebuilt the roof in solid arched masonry, constructing it like a bridge. It gave the building its distinctive barrel vaulted windowless appearance, a stone fortress that looked more like a tomb than a lodge. Connolly died just 4 years later, having barely used the place. The house sat empty, waiting for a different kind of occupant. By 1735, the lodge was leased to a group that would cement its infamy, the Dublin branch of the Hellfire Club. founded by Richard Parsons, the first Earl of Rosse, and the painter James Worsdale. This was an exclusive, shared special interest group for the elite of the Protestant ascendancy. These were the young bucks, the idle, wealthy sons of nobility who found Georgian morality too tight for their liking. They met to pursue a lifestyle of nihilism, blasphemy, and social defiance. While most of their meetings were in the Eagle Tavern on Cork Hill, the remote lodge on Montpelier Hill was where they went when they wanted their revels to be truly private. Richard Parsons wasn't just a drunk, he was a provocateur. He took the title the King of Hell and reportedly received guests in the nude. After a trip to Egypt, he claimed to have discovered Dionysian scrolls salvaged from the Great Library of Alexandria. He even wrote a book called Dionysus Rising, using it to frame the club's debauchery as a sacred pursuit of wine and ecstasy. They drank scaldine, a rancid, nauseating mix of whiskey and hot butter served from a silver punch bowl. And at every meeting, they left a chair vacant for old Hob, Satan himself, who was officially the club's president. I find their theatrical Satanism quite quaint. Humans trying so hard to be evil by drinking butter whiskey and toasting to a chair. They had no idea that the real darkness isn't summoned with a toast. It's grown in the soil through centuries of desecration. They thought they were the predators. They were actually just children playing with matches in a room full of gunpowder. Every haunted site has its centerpiece legend, and Povigilia has its mad doctor, but the Hellfire Club has the cloven hoof. The singularly stormy night, a stranger knocked at the lodge door. He was a gentleman and well dressed, and he was invited to a high stakes card game. Hours passed. In a haze of scaltine and smoke, suddenly a player dropped a card. When he reached under the table to retrieve it, the candlelight caught the stranger's feet, except they weren't feet, they were cloven hooves. In an instant, the visitor vanished in a burst of flame and sulfur, exiting through the roof and leaving a hole that no mason could ever repair. Then there's the mascot. The club's symbol was a massive black cat. Legend says a visitor once died after venturing into the lodge, and his host returned with a local priest to investigate. They found the members feasting with a huge black cat sitting at the head of the table, a creature with horns like a goat. The priest performed an exorcism and threw holy water, causing the cat to explode into a conflagration of smoke and fire that supposedly gutted the building. Sightings of a monstrous black cat the size of a Dalmatian continue at Killikee House down the hill to this very day. I've seen 1,000 mysterious strangers in my time. Usually they're just my kin looking for a snack. But that cat? That sounds like something older, something elemental that was left here before the first tomb was built. If you find a brass devil under your floorboards, take my advice. Put it back. The hill is a very jealous landlord. The first phase of the club ended in fire around 1741. The cause? Human nature. Richard Chapel Whaley, nicknamed Burn Chapel because he used to set fire to Catholic chapels on Sundays for amusement, reportedly poured brandy over a footman and set the man alight. The panicked servant ran through the house, his flames catching the tapestries and turning the lodge into a funeral pyre. Many of the bucks were too drunk to escape and died in their seats, still holding their punch bowls. In 1771, in the 1990s, the Hellfire Club saw a bizarre modern revival. Illegal raves were held in ruins, with the legendary Spiral Tribe reportedly playing until dawn as thousands of young Dubliners danced on the very stones stolen from the Neolithic dead. Today, walkers still report the smell of sulfur, sudden drops in temperature, and the sensation of being pushed or having pressure on their chests when they enter the main hall. My favorite report? A hiker who saw a creature that jumped like a cat, but was hairy like a dog, leap over a high wall and vanish into a 20-foot drop. But the most terrifying thing isn't the ghosts, it's the truth. Between 2014 and 2016, the Hellfire Club archaeological project finally dug into the summit. Led by Neil Jackman, they discovered that the ancient tomb wasn't just a legend. They found trenches 1 and 2 identifying the badly disturbed remains of a Neolithic passage tomb dating back to 3500 BCE. They found worked flint, diagnostic bone pins, and even megalithic art. Faint concentric circles carved into a boulder that had been fractured by the heat of the club's bonfires. The grave Speaker Connolly tried to erase is still there, right under the floorboards of his shooting's lodge. Montpelier Hill is a polemist of Irish history, Neolithic sanctity, Georgian debauchery, and modern mystery. It's a place where light of reason casts the darkest shadows imaginable. The hill belongs to the dead. The Bucks were just temporary tenants who didn't pay their rent. Sleep well tonight, listeners. And if you're playing cards in Dublin mountains, keep your eyes on the feet under the table.